Moromai, good morning. This is Judith Lay welcoming you to Manx Radio and to the podcast of this week's edition of At Your Service. Manx Radio! God is not a white man, so says author and broadcaster Chine MacDonald. Ahead of her visit here on Tuesday, she sends us a thought and some inspirational music chosen specially for this Black History Month. And my special guest today is quite convinced that God has a great sense of humour. Listen to Kelvin Woolmer and see if you agree. But let's begin with a great morning hymn, Christ whose glory fills the skies. Huddersfield Choral Society and Charles Wesley's hymn, Christ whose glory fills the skies. Now let's welcome today's special guest. And as it's now possible for people to travel freely on and off the island, it's really good to welcome visitors. First time visitor to the island, certainly first time guest on this programme. And I've been told that a good way to introduce the Reverend Kelvin Woolmer would be to say, from knicker to vicar. Is that fair, Kelvin?
That's very fair. I'd come out the army in 1975 and I joined the Metropolitan Police. So 1975 is the last century, and I did 30 years of policing. And then when I retired in 2005, I became a full-time priest in the Church of England.
Was that something always at the back of your mind, or was it a bolt out of the blue?
I didn't even go to church until our eldest daughter had had cancer. And my wife was a young mum at that time, 1984, 85. And these lovely people from this church came and fed us and drove us to Great Ormond Street and looked after us, and Janet got better. And then I thought, this is good. I don't have to go and have anything more to do with these Christian people anymore. So that was my attitude towards Christianity. Then God has a sense of humour. And let's just say I was a policeman fully, and if I said to do something, I expected you to do it. And if people wanted to confront me, I was quite happy to be confronted. So I was quite a different person to the one I am now. And we went on a church weekend. My wife said, let's go on a church weekend. And I said, no, you go and I'm staying at home. So obviously I'm a married man, and I did what I was told in the finish. And I went with her on this church weekend in the Three Daughters. And that was 1987. And I ended up sitting in the back of the conference hall at a place called High Lee in Hoddesdon, Hertfordshire. And I didn't want to be there, and I walked in inadvertently, but I'm not rude. So I sat down, because I know what Christians do, they always sing. So I waited for them to stand up to sing, and they didn't. So I thought, how on earth do I get out of this place? And a guy called Hugh Palmer, who was the speaker, stood up and said, "We haven't got time to sing. I'm going to go straight into the talk on Romans." And he spoke about Romans 8 and forgiveness and love. And I listened and I thought, wow. And then at the end, he said, "We haven't got time to sing." He said, we're just going to pray. So I bent my head and I said, "Well, God, if you're there, I'm here." At this point, having said, "I'm here," this man stood next to me at the edge of the aisle where I was sitting and put his hand on my shoulder. And he said, "You'll be all right now." And I knew that was Jesus. And people listen to this bit and they go, "No, you've just had a psychotic experience." Now, everyone always says to me, "What did he look like?" And my only answer to that is, he's very bright. And at that point, he took all my anger at my daughter's illness, all the anger that I had as a man, and I was so calm afterwards. I knew that something had happened and that I'd just met Jesus. You can see me, I'm a big guy. And I stood at the front of this conference and told Hugh Palmer what had happened, and I sobbed in front of 360 people, which before would never have happened. And afterwards, I'm not ashamed to say that's what happened. I met Jesus Christ. That's the only way I'm a Christian. So on those days when, as Christians, we all go, "Is this really it? Am I just making this up?" I can never say that because I met Jesus. And then I met him several times after that as well. So can you have psychotic experiences over one continuous 2-year period? I don't know. But that's what happened. And I'm a Christian because, like Andrew, this disciple, and Philip and all the rest, I met him. And I think that's God's sense of humour, really, because, how on earth was he ever going to get me to be a Christian other than confront me with this Jesus Christ himself?
It's a wonderfully moving story, and really, I'm listening to you, I'm almost lost for a word. But it is exactly what Jesus said he would do. It's having that openness, it's being that channel.
Judith, if you'd known me before, I was not anti-Christian, just not interested. Just not interested. The only things that ever mattered to me were my children and my wife, and doing police work and looking after the community as a policeman, not looking after the community as a pastoral caring vicar person. So, I think God must have been laughing his socks off at me.
But he had a plan for you. Maybe he took you through all of that, even that dreadful experience of your daughter's illness. Maybe he took you through all of that and everything that you learned in the police force, everything you learned about people. Maybe he took you through all of that to equip you for his full service now.
Wow. I think I could have done it without being stabbed and shot at and blown up by the IRA during the London bombing campaigns. But dealing with people, you can recognise people that really have genuine needs and people that just want to talk. And I have, in God's grace, the ability to sort of sit and understand people. And that, I think, is the gift that he's given me to share.
Kelvin, tell me about ministry today for you now. Where are you? Tell me about your church and what you do.
I became one of those self-supporting ministers in 2001 because people in the church kept coming up to me and saying, "Oh, you'd make a lovely vicar." And I kept saying, "No, go away, leave me alone. I don't want to do this." Right? And then God, again with his sense of humour, said, "Yes, right, stop messing about. This is what I want you to do." So I ended up becoming ordained as a self-supporting minister. Did my curacy whilst I was still in the police force. So for the last 4 years of my police service, I was an ordained minister. And it was just before the 9/11 attacks in 2001. And I was running an investigations unit in Limehouse Police Station. And the chief superintendent walked in and he said, Sarge, because I was acting sergeant at the time. He said, "Sarge," he said, "is that right, you're a vicar?" And I went, "Okay, yes, sir." Because I kept it really quiet. And he said, "I want you to be the chaplain." He said, "because this 9/11 attack has really upset everyone." So that taught me a lot about pastoral ministry. So after I retired in 2005, I went to become the Olympic construction chaplain. Right, so I did 6.5 years. That's my Olympic Park, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. I saw it go from mud flats to the wonderful buildings that they had for the Olympics. And I had security passes for everywhere. And I loved that job. And then I also had a church that went with it, which was predominantly Afro-Caribbean, which again taught me a lot about people's Christian beliefs and how to worship. So we did that. We grew a congregation, and I say we because my wife was very involved. We had 7 people in the congregation when we went there, and by the time we left in the end of 2012, we were up to 70, nearly 80. They were wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Then I went to do a village church in just outside of Epping, Epping Forest, with a school church next to it. And then in 2016, I was asked to look at a post in Bedford to be the town centre chaplain and chaplain on many levels for other organisations, but also to run a church. So I started in February 2017, where I am now at St Peter's in Bedford, in Bedfordshire, and that has been a very interesting church. It was very liturgical to start with. In the last 3 years, I've had TV screens put in, 60-inch TV screens. I recommend them because you look at the telly and you see the liturgy come up and you can sing with your head up, not looking down in a book. And we have all the IT that goes with it. And it all sounds very technical, but it's attractive to young families because the kids come in and the first thing they'll do is look at the telly. And then when you switch it on, it's even more impressive because then they'll understand what's going on. And we have the music that pipes through the PA system. And we had a growing congregation right up until March 2019, when COVID struck. We're really growing, young families coming. We had services for the deaf, so we had signed services. We were experimenting with speech to text for the TV screens. And then COVID hit. And then we went to Zoom. But what that meant was that lots of our older congregation ended up having to have laptops brought for them by their children and grandchildren. Lots of them, oh no, I can't do technology. But they can now after 18 months. When you listen to them as they sign into Zoom and you've got 90-year-old Anne telling 85-year-old Roy, we can't see you. And Roy's saying, well, I don't know what to do. She said, well, move the cursory thing down to the left and you see the little camera thing with the red arrow across it. Oh, yes, he says. Well, click on that, Roy. So they are very technically savvy. And Roy comes up on the screen and says, oh, I didn't know how to do that. She said, no, it's the same as I told you last week, Roy. They've become technically savvy. We've been linked with churches across Europe. So we had quite a big congregation at one stage. But now we're all back in church. I'm preaching the word. Well, I was up until a few weeks ago. I caught meningitis. I was off for about 3 weeks till I recovered. And I'm back this Sunday in the church. And I'm just going to whack them with Christmas is coming, invite friends, because the Lord wants us to grow. So the only way I can do that is to tell them the Gospels. I say God's got a sense of humour because, I mean, why on earth would he choose someone like me with my non-religious background, my complete antipathy towards church? I mean, even to the fact that I didn't really want the children baptised when they were little. And now here I am. And I love baptisms. I love doing baptisms. Everybody gets wet. I belong to the Met Police retired policeman's Facebook page. There's thousands of us on there, and I know lots of them. Lots of my old police colleagues, they've said to me, Kelvin, how the heck, that's not quite the word they use, how the heck did you become a vicar? And my only response every time is, God knows, because I don't.
The Lord rise to meet you. May the wind be ever at your back. May the sun shine warm upon
That Irish blessing sung there very appropriately by the priests. Thank you to my special guest today, soldier, policeman and now Anglican priest, Reverend Kelvin Woolmer, a recent visitor to the island. On last week's programme, Louise Whiteleg, our local Christian Aid rep, brought us news of the visit this coming Tuesday of one of her colleagues, Chine MacDonald, a broadcaster, journalist and a passionate campaigner for a just solution to the climate crisis that's crippling the world's poorest people. Chine's latest book, God is Not a White Man, is a beautifully written memoir about being black and female in a church and a country that places most value on white males. It's been described as essential reading if you care about the blight that racism casts on us all and if you want to be part of building a better future together. Chine is going to be at the Manx Museum on Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock. She'll deliver a short presentation on the forthcoming COP26 conference, the real impacts of climate change, equality and justice, and then that'll be followed by an In Conversation With session when Chine will talk more about her experiences of racial injustice. Tickets are free and you can get them on Eventbrite. You'll find a link on the Christian Aid Isle of Man Facebook page or simply ring or text Louise Whiteleg on 474 275. 474 275. But ahead of her visit to the island, Chine has sent us a reflection for this Black History Month.
Hello everyone, I'm Chine MacDonald. I'm Head of Community Fundraising and Public Engagement based in London. And I want to talk this Black History Month about a song called Imeela by Nathaniel Bassey. And it's a Christian worship song and the chorus is sung in my mother tongue of Igbo. I'm from the Igbo ethnic group in the southeast of Nigeria. We are a proud people. We are the people of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie and Chinua Achebe and Oluwado Equiano. So we have some greats that have come from us. So yeah, we're very proud of that. We're a creative people. We love words. We love music. We love literature. We love food. Now, I called the song something that is sung in my mother tongue because of the history of colonisation in Nigeria, the history of British people in Nigeria, the country in which I was born, English is actually the national language, despite there being more than 200 languages in Nigeria. And I guess the other thing is that I have never actually learnt Igbo, and I blame my parents. And I think that for some immigrant communities moving to the UK, as my parents did in the 80s, it was kind of impressed on us that we should assimilate as much as possible, that we should speak English with English accents, and perhaps in that assimilation, we neglected to remember our own language, where we were from. So I grew up not speaking Igbo, not understanding Igbo, but it was after university that I decided that my identity was actually not in being British. As a black person, I felt like I could never actually be accepted as a British person wholly and completely. So I realised that I had this whole other rich identity and a culture that I knew very little about. So after university, I actually joined an Igbo society. I went to Igbo lessons. I read about Igbo culture. I learned how to make our food and love who we were as a people. And so that's for me why the song Imeela is so important and it's so beautiful. I've grown up in British evangelicalism within Christianity, where much of our worship music is from Australia or the US or the UK. And those songs, some of the best known songs we sing in English in churches here in the UK, are the same songs that are sung in churches in the global south, in churches in Nigeria. And I think what that says is that Christianity belongs to the English. And that's something that I don't think is true. Now, I often tell this story of my great-grandparents. My great-grandfather was ordained in the Church of England in 1940 in the southeast of Nigeria. And he and my great-grandmother used to run a school for Christian wives. So before they would get married, young women would come and stay at my grandparents' school to learn what it meant to be good Christian wives. And actually what that meant was they would be taught how to bake cakes or how to drink tea or how to use doilies and lace. So from my earliest memories of my faith journey, even before I began, my faith, Christianity, has been inextricably intertwined with whiteness and Englishness, even from my great-grandfather and my great-grandmother's days in their school for Christian wives. So I remember the first time I heard this song, Imela. Imela means thank you. And when it got to the chorus, I heard worship to God that sounded like home. An authentic praise of God that I found deeply redemptive and moving. And that said that the God that I believe in isn't actually English, but a God for all of us. A God who can hear and understand worship in Igbo.
When I think upon your goodness and your faithfulness each day, I'm convinced it's not because I am worthy to receive the kind of love that you give, but I'm grateful for your mercy, and I'm grateful for your grace, and because of how you poured out yourself, I have come to sing this song out in praise. Imela, oh, Imela, oh, kaka, oh, ye kerua, Imela, hey,
I just love the music, and I'll just translate the chorus for you. So, Imela means thank you. Okaka Onyekerua, which means great and mighty creator of the world. Imela, thank you. Ezemo, which means my king. Then Onyedikagi Ekenedirigi, which is who is like you, all glory belongs to you. Onyenemema, which means he who does good. So I hope you enjoy the song. I hope it makes you think about who God is as a God of all of us, rather than a God who belongs to the white man. Christian Aid's Chine MacDonald choosing music from Nathaniel Bassey. And Chine will be at the Manx Museum here in Douglas at 7 o'clock on Tuesday night. Contact Louise Whiteleg for your free tickets on 474 275. And now it's notice board time.
Abbeylands Chapel have their Harvest Thanksgiving services today. At 3 o'clock this afternoon with Mrs. Pauline Corlett, and tonight at 6:30, where I have the privilege of leading the service. And the harvest celebrations conclude at Abbeylands tomorrow, Monday evening at 7 o'clock, when there'll be a short service followed by the sale of produce and supper and a little entertainment. All are very welcome. The annual Fair Trade Sale will take place in the Cool Chapel Hall in Braddon this week from Thursday the 28th to Saturday the 30th of October, open from 10 a.m. to 6:30 each day. Christmas cards, food and craft items will be on sale. These bring satisfying employment and dignity, fair wages and a better way of life for people in some of the world's poorest countries. Simple lunches will be served from 12 noon till 2 p.m. in aid of the Afghan refugees and the UNICEF COVID appeal. St Jude's Church in the parish of Andreas have their Harvest Festival this week. On St Jude's Day, Thursday the 28th of October at 7 p.m, the annual traditional Harvest Festival takes place at the church. Following the service, there'll be light refreshments, and donations of non-perishable food for the food bank will be gratefully received. Then there'll be St Jude's Soup Day on Saturday, October the 30th at Tyne-Gilga, the old schoolhouse just across the road from the church, where a selection of homemade soups and delicious cakes will be served between noon and 4 p.m. at a cost of £5 per person. Looking ahead to next Sunday, and in Sulby Methodist Church at 10:30, there'll be a special service to thank the farmers and farm workers for all they do. Also next Sunday, but in the evening at 6:30, there'll be a celebration service in Sandygate Chapel. It'll be led by Reverend Brian Yardy, with musical items from Sue and Jeff Collier, and a warm welcome for all. And that's all that we have time for now, but there will be more news from the notice board during sundown tonight from 9 o'clock, when I'll be back with a mix of easy listening music to round off your weekend. Email me, please, with news for the notice board and requests for your favourite hymns. My email address is judithlay@manxradio.com. I do hope you can come back and join me later, but for now, this is Judith saying thank you for listening, and I wish you and those you love a blessed and peaceful week, and a very good morning.
Station